Or does it from over there? Probably.
All the slides.
Oh.
Something I don't know. This is what I'm seeing right now, what you see on the screen.
Have a flash drive if you want.
What happened with those people that want? They're not coming around anymore.
Here it is.
Ones that want to get over.
I'm sorry. So, is this you or me?
But we were hoping they wouldn't come back.
Did I open the package? Did it? I had some people last time. Okay. Okay. He's gonna have an executive session, so to take that over. Okay, so that's what I do.
The last slide of my exhibits is for executive. Do you need that then, Blair? Do you need a copy of the slides?
You should have that should there, I think.
Yeah.
So it'll be, you'll still be sharing your screen.
Your screen is live on.
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds good.
Good. Thanks, Blair. And then what I
Must have
wear.
been a free shirt somewhere.
Should not have.
Hello. Hey, what's up?
There's.
I'm gonna meet with Ricky for a few minutes this morning.
Hey, Terry, this is Blair. I was playing with the breakout room for the executive later, and I was using you as my test person. So hopefully I haven't messed you up. Just don't accept the invitation to it.
Okay, I'm still muted, right?
You are unmuted at this moment, but I can mute
Okay.
you again if you want.
Oh, no, I generally just listen in, and if I need to participate, then I'll trust you to unmute me, but I did not accept any invitation. Do you send that out through the Zoom?
Yeah, I haven't done one of these rooms yet, so I was playing and practicing. So my understanding is you have to accept an invitation and into that room. So
Where would I see the invitation?
it would be somewhere on your screen, but I am not sure.
Okay,
I'm trying to delete you out of the room again now that I know how to put you in. So
All right.
anyway, just if you see something, just don't
All right,
accept it.
Yeah, the breakout room is for like executive sessions, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
All right,
right.
thanks.
just hanging in there. How are you doing?
I'm doing a lot better than I was a few months ago.
Excellent, that's good to hear. All right, I'll be observing, listening, and but not participating unless called upon.
Thank you, Terry. I'm going to mute you now, okay?
All right, thanks, Blair.
The best class I've ever taken in my entire life was keyboarding in high school. That's what I learned on.
You didn't get sued.
One minute. Okay. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the Kane County Transportation Committee for Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. Could I have a motion and a second to approve our minutes from August 18th, 2020?
We need a roll call for attendance.
Okay, let's do this real quick.
Okay.
Mr. Caius and, okay, let's do roll call.
Hanson, Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Kenyon,
Yes, here.
Caius,
Caius present.
Martin,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Weber,
Present.
Press.
Okay, we have a quorum. And I have a motion for Mr. Caius to approve the minutes. I need a second. Mr. Weber seconds. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed,
think we
same
have to do-
sign. The minutes.
Excuse me, point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
You don't want the lawyers mad at
you. Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon, Caius,
Caius, yes.
Martin, Sanchez,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Press.
Yes. Okay, and public comment on agenda items. I see none. And we do have Mr. Jeffrey Gilbert here who would like to make a comment on a non-agenda item. So we'll move item 11 up to number 3. So welcome, and if you could speak into the mic and state your name and address. I think we might have that already.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Gilbert, and I'm a Batavia resident in the Heritage West subdivision, directly across from the Moose Heart Barn. First off, I'd like to thank other action that was done previous to this for widening or at least putting in a left turn lane going into the subdivision. As you know that, and I understand from talking to my neighbors that the speed limit was reduced from 55 to 50 at one point. Just for the record, I'd like to say nobody does 50, but you're probably full aware of that. And actually, most recently, there's been a sign up that says what the speed limit is and down below how fast people are going. And I've seen 55, 58, 60, and a little above 60 on both ways, southbound and northbound. And also the right turn lane going into Heritage West. So thank you very much for that. That is definitely a safety issue for everybody around. As an observation, and just for the record, I'm going to say I have 100% faith in my God. I don't have as much faith in people coming 55, 60 miles an hour in either direction during rush hour as I'm sitting waiting to turn left into my subdivision. And when the cars go by, you can actually feel the vehicle sucking you, moving your car. Now, I say I have faith in God, but we also know that people are distracted nowadays with cell phones and with various things. And what I can foresee happening, anybody here ever watch NASCAR? One guy comes by and just touches the bumper, and the next thing you know, they're all spinning. And what I can foresee happening, and God forbid, my vision is wrong, but I can see a catastrophic accident happening there. And and especially during rush hour, one guy, all it needs is take one person to bump a bumper, and that's going to push people into an oncoming lane where it's going to be a pileup on both directions. I think that there's a potential during, and so what I would request is some kind of a left turn signal to be put in there, not to come out of the subdivision, which as I understand, that was a request previously, because while you're sitting on Heritage Drive waiting to turn left, you're safe. But you're not safe. And let me back up a second. There's only room for about 2 cars in that left turn lane. So a third car then becomes where their rear end is sticking out into the traffic a little bit. And it's just is a vision that I don't like in my head when I'm sitting there. It's very uneasy. I think I've talked to a lot of our neighbors. They all feel the same way. And I guess my here today to hope that you will consider that because I think that it's a life safety issue. Definitely.
Well, thanks for coming. We normally don't do back and forth, but I would like to ask Tom to maybe tell us a little bit of the history because this does seem to come up about every 3 to 5 years, and we've made those previous improvements. But
Right.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, this intersection, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was put in, but it was probably about 35 years ago or so. And it's an intersection that at the time, the county board did not want to approve an access at that location, but they did proceed forward with it because of the development request. It is an intersection that the county board approved as a temporary access. most of the access points on Randall Road, we try to develop planning designs in order to best incorporate the signal spacing and such, and through development activities. And so there was consideration for a temporary access at that point. That temporary access did look like it was going to be a little bit longer than anticipated. So we did, probably about 20 some years ago, we did put in the turn lanes at that location as part of a resurfacing program, just to accommodate it. The anticipation still is that when the Mooseheart property to the south develops, that has had a couple development activities that have come in the planning process and was considered over the years, and that would be some commercial properties and office properties, and that there would be a signal sometime in the future that would make warrants. Right now, there's probably somewhere between 70 to 80 lots within Heritage West, so it doesn't even come close to meeting signal warrants. And so our hope is to someday to actually remove the access point of the Heritage West Drive and bring it through development on the south. That should resolve some of the issues, but at this point in time, the left turn and lane is in there, and the warrants are not met. We've like, this does come up about every 3 to 5 years, and we have done warrant analysis for signals, and to put a signal there could actually potentially create more problems. It is, right now, it's a very low accident intersection, probably one of the lower intersections on Randall Road. So it would be a little concerning to us to put in a signal, especially with warrants not even being close. What I can say to the committee is, though, that staff would be glad to go back and look at it again. That was just when I saw the request to speak, I just looked up a few things to refresh my memory. But we'd be glad to go back and look and see if there's any other additional things we could look at there.
So, Mr. Gilbert, were you, just so I understand, were you proposing or requesting a full signal, or were you requesting just a one-lane turn?
I think that whatever removes somebody from that left lane as fast as possible is what I'm requesting. It doesn't need to be, I mean, I understand that there needs to be some kind of a signal to do that. But I just, it's very uneasy to sit there as cars are going by. And I've actually watched both mirrors, the side mirror and the front windshield, as people are crossing over that yellow line, encroaching on what I call my area at that point. And so it's not easy to sit there and watch that. And
that's what happens, obviously, as Tom said, the development was essentially going to be denied without that, or couldn't be built without that access point. The developer presses the issue. We allow a temporary intersection, and then here we are 35 years later.
Well, and I understand that. In 35 years, I'm sure there's more traffic than there was 35 years ago.
So the plan was that Mooseheart Road,
sure,
your access will be turned, 45 degrees, and you'll be actually going out to Mooseheart in a perfect world when that.
And Orchard is better than Randall, because they get going there. I mean,
okay, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And we have the senior leadership of our department here, so we'll take a look at it, another look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you a call.
Okay, please do.
Okay, no other public comment. We'll move on to finance report from Tom.
You have the different documents within your packet for finance, and just to kind of give you an overview, our financial trends are still proceeding forward appropriately. We did, as I mentioned a month ago, we did have a shortfall in the revenue fundings coming in. What I did want to point out real quickly was just the aspect of that we are starting to see the revenue trends going back up now with more trips on the road. So while we're still not at the revenue intake that we should be at. We are starting to see an uptick again, so the amount of revenue loss will not be as bad as we thought. As I mentioned a month ago, we were a little over $2 million in revenue loss, and we're probably, again, we continue to tick up, but it's probably more in the $2.5 to $3 million range. So that's just a quick look at that. That's all I had as far as the finances.
So trending in a positive direction. If there's no questions for Tom on finance, we'll move over to maintenance.
Maintenance, just a quick comment. We're having just our typical ongoing summer activities. Mowing is occurring at this point in time, and that's all I have for the maintenance report.
Any questions on maintenance? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first resolution regarding Adopt a Highway. Tom?
We have 2 Adopt a Highway requests before you, and the first new applicant is Mooseheart, and they're looking at Mooseheart Road from Illinois 31 to Randall Road on both sides. And then we also have Team Bosco, and they're looking at Bunker Road from Main Street Road to Hughes Road, and staff is recommending approval.
I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Weber. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Oh, roll call, sorry. I'm not going to make it through the coronavirus, I don't think. Roll call vote.
Hanson,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon. Caius,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, resolution passes, and then we're going to move over to Carl to give us an update on the enterprise lease program. If you recall, a while back, we discussed the opportunity of leasing vehicles and then turning them back in a short period to almost eliminate our vehicle costs. But Carl, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. So the purpose of this briefing is just to bring you up to date. We actually approved the program, I think, about a year ago at this committee. And just wanted to let you know how things are going and then what we intend to do in the future, which is we think the program's going quite well, and we intend to, this is a multi-year contract, and we intend to place our next order for the next dozen vehicles this week, unless the committee has major objection to that. So let me just bring you up to date. You can see this slide here is actually sort of a copy of what we showed you back when this was just a concept. Just some of the main 2 items are highlighted there in green, which is we are able, because of some aggressive manufacturer incentives, to buy vehicles at much lower than market price. And then we keep those vehicles for a short period of time. In this case, they're about 6 months old, and we're selling them now. We're now in the process of selling our first set of 12. And then we're able to sell those vehicles at market price, which is actually, I'll show you some of the numbers here shortly. I think you'll be hopefully pleased. Some of the benefits, some of the other benefits are shown aside from the sales prices. We've standardized the fleet. All 12 vehicles are exactly the same. They're all basically brand new. And, you know, if you think about it, these are still 2020 model year vehicles that we're selling now with relatively low miles. So we're getting good price on those. The specific model that we chose is shown at the bottom. It's the GMC Sierra 1500 double cab. Chose those vehicles primarily because the incentives that the manufacturer is offering is the best on that vehicle. Next slide, please. So this shows some of the basically the cash flow. We started taking, we placed the order last fall for our first set of vehicles. We started taking delivery of those in the February timeframe, and then they started coming in at different times. So you can see on the top line there, the lease payments that are going out the door are several $1,000s per month, and it varied a little bit based on how many vehicles we had in the program at the time. And then now, we are in the process of selling the 12 vehicles. Actually, 5 of the 12 have already sold, and we have real data there. That 113,486 number that you see on the bottom line will be the net proceeds that we expect from the sale of all 12 vehicles. So on the top line was the money going out the door. And you can think about what that might add up to. I'll show you on the next slide, actually. And then on the bottom is the money coming back in the door. So Tom, next slide, please. So here's a summary of the program. The total lease payments over that roughly 6-month period added up to $36,000 and change. When we sell the vehicles, we will be bringing back in $113,000 and change. And so you see the difference there. It's a net gain. So it's when do you ever hear that in government? Something that's basically a profit. We like to stay away from that word, but there'll be a net gain on this round of vehicles. In addition, there's some other savings. The maintenance costs are quite a bit lower on brand new vehicles. They're not high mileage vehicles. And so you can imagine if you only keep a vehicle for 6 months, you don't even necessarily have to do a oil change or any preventative maintenance. You just sell it before that's necessary. And then at the bottom, another note is that we actually sold the previous entire fleet. So that's another $70,000 that accrues to the county through this whole program. So that's a summary of where we're at. It's actually a net positive for the county. And our intent is to move forward with making the next order of vehicles so that we could take delivery of the next order of vehicles in early 2021. So happy to respond to any questions.
Thanks, Carl. Bill Edwards and the shop crew, they've devised some, I don't know what you'd call it, but easy to remove. Can you tell us a little bit about that, like the lettering and the
Yeah, so
accessories?
one of the things that we knew would be different was we'd be changing the decals and the safety lights, and all of the upfitting would happen more frequently. So it's happening now every 6 months. So we streamlined all of that. It's simpler material to stick on and peel off. Without losing any safety, we were just paying more attention to how easy it is to put on and take off. So the safety lights are mounted magnetically instead of bolted. Same thing with the stickers and the decals. They're a little bit different, but they're just a little bit easier to put on and take off. So that actually is the primary quote unquote maintenance that we're doing to those vehicles. They're all getting new safety equipment and decals every 6 months.
Well, since we're in the positive territory financially with the 6 month, would it make sense to look at keeping them 12, or do you think we'd go into the negative? It just seems like 6 months is so short.
It's very short. We actually think that, so first of all, don't expect this in the future. This was sort of there's a very strong demand for trucks, all trucks, particularly used trucks right now. Keep in mind that these are still 2020 model year trucks, so they're very desirable and they're low mileage, so they're like new on the market. The longer you keep them, then there's another model year that comes into play. So if somebody has a choice between a 2021 brand new model and a 12-month-old 2020 model, you start to lose some value there. At least that's what we've been told to expect.
Mr. Kais, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think I was having some deja vu when I looked at this, and I think it was March of 2019 that we first brought it up. Sounded like a great program. Was the first round GMC pickups as well, or was that?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
I seem to remember Ford cars for some reason, but
Yeah, the Forest Reserve, we bought quite a few Fords and
yeah. Yeah, we need to do this quick before they catch on to what we're doing. Because we're making money on this.
We're certainly not leaders in the area. We waited until another couple of local agencies were doing this. Village of Algonquin has been doing this recently, and they had similar results. So it sounded a little bit too good to be true. We started small. It's a small portion of our fleet. It's just 12 trucks. But it's the ones that make most sense for this program. So that's why we chose those.
Other questions or comments? The hope is that this will also act as, or the intention was this would act as a pilot program for other departments. For example, our building inspectors could use the same truck. Many other departments, and I'm not sure if they do sedans or cars or.
They can do whatever you want, but just a word of caution that the whole, the reason the program works is the difference between the sales price that you pay and then what you can sell it for at the end. So that manufacturer's incentive that we get on these vehicles makes basically this vehicle the most attractive one that's out there on the market.
So, but again, like our building inspectors could certainly drive the same type of vehicle. And then of course, keep in mind our maintenance was zero, so they're not doing oil changes, tires, all that. So there's an additional savings there. But other questions or comments? Mr. Martin?
I think, aren't school districts doing this now with buses?
I know Geneva's been, I brought that up, I think, during the initial thing. Where
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's all
Geneva's
back to
been
buses.
doing it for years. I know other towns that have been doing it too, so it must be any kind of,
It's certainly a way to manage your cash flow. So also, if you notice, the cash out the door is in the thousands per month on this program for us. So you're not buying $400,000 worth of trucks and then selling $400,000 worth of trucks.
What-
You're actually just paying monthly rental.
to Carl's point about it's the current market situation that makes this so good. Let's assume that whatever the dynamic is that makes this work changes. How deeply are we tied into the program? So if we have a point when we've lost 70,000 instead of gained 70,000, can we opt out and
We have options at that point. It's called an open-ended lease. So basically, if you get to a point in time and you don't think that you're going to break even with the sale, you don't sell. You just keep paying your monthly lease payments for a while, and hopefully conditions get better.
okay.
Or you could bail, and sell them all and go back to the old way too. So there's definitely options available to us.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks, Carl. And then we're going to move over to Jackie Forbes, Planning and Programming area for the Planning and Programming report.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jackie Forbes, Chief of Planning and Programming. Tom asked me to give our report this morning because afterwards I'm going to talk a little bit more about our long-range transportation plan. So I'll skip over the first item. The second item is our Kane Kendall Council of Mayors newsletter, which you should have at your place. A few highlights there. We have always at the beginning our funding opportunities. A big one that's open right now is the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, so there's information there. A couple of unique opportunities right now are the Snowmobile Trail Establishment Fund and the IDNR Boat Access Area Development Program. So kind of different funding that's available through IDNR that we wanted to point out to everyone. And then inside is just some other information about some of the work that staff's been doing these last couple of months. And then finally, I wanted to let you know that we did hire a new transportation planner. His name is Noah Jones. He has worked with us as an intern last summer and worked with us again this summer, and was able to move into an open position that we had at KDOT. So we wanted to welcome him. He will be part of our Kane Kendall Council of Mayors staff as well. All right, so moving on, I wanted to give you a preview. Let me go back one. Okay, of a slide deck that we're going to be posting along with the draft of our Kane County 2050 Transportation Plan. I've been giving you updates every month in our planning and programming report, and we're actually here right now talking about the actual plan that is ready to go. If you had taken a sneak peek at some of these slides that are in the deck, you will see there's a lot of information on the slides. I am not going to go through all the information. The idea was, this is a slide deck that our consultant put together so that the public, when they're ready to make public comment on the plan, can kind of go through this and read it slowly and have all that information. So today, I'm just going to pick a few highlights from each slide to point out to you, and we're going to try and move rather quickly through them with the understanding that you can go back and look at them more closely. There are several maps on there that you won't really be able to see, but again, you can go back and take a look at them later. And then the full plan will be posted soon, so you'll be able to see all the details of the information I'm going to talk about today. Okay, so what I'm going to call this is our why slide. Why do we even do our long-range transportation plan? It is statutorily required, but in here we give a little bit of information about our county, what our population employment is expected to grow by in the future. And then the purpose of the plan is giving us a comprehensive plan that responds to existing deficiencies, what we already know is happening in our transportation network, and then what that projected development and growth will do to it. This slide gives you an overview how this planning process all worked, the different steps that we took to get to where we are today. I wanted to point out number 3 on this one. The key is that we were able to move from the 2040 planning horizon to 2050. If you recall, this has been a plan that's been being developed for several years now, and we had the opportunity to acquire some grant funds from IDOT to actually change from 2040 modeling to 2050, which puts us in alignment with CMAP's Onto 2050 plan. So we kind of put a pause on some of the planning work that we did while we were able to get that new data from CMAP, and then actually now call this our 2050 plan. All right, so one of the key parts of this plan was our stakeholder input. All the different ways that we got input, which I'll speak at on the next slide, but this is just a kind of a list that some of the things that we looked at for our stakeholders to help us with. And we looked at what everyone suggested, and we compared it to our mission statement and goals, because we want to make sure that we're still looking at what's important to our stakeholders when we were doing this plan. All right, so this slide is rather busy, but it has a lot of important information. I wanted to remind people who have been here years now, we did a MetroQuest survey that was online, and we had over 3,600 people visit this survey. So we had a lot of input. We had several questions that we asked people what was important to them. They could do different kind of ranking information. And then we also had a map where people could pick a location on the map that they were concerned about and put in a note about that. This is, I have a problem with this intersection or this corridor, people speeding, whatever it was, bike ped, and it was done by category. So what this slide is it's really showing you all those folks who did a MetroQuest survey, what they thought. We also did something called Poll Anywhere with several other groups that we had to get their input as well. And it was a little bit they had slightly different thoughts about it, but as you see, safety was number 1 on both of those polls. Also, I wanted to mention when we did this MetroQuest survey, it was online. However, we did go out and visit locations with iPads and went to the public and asked them to give us input. So we went to places like the Geneva Metro Station, Waubonsie Community College, Aurora Public Library, Senior Center, and we also blanketed the county with signs for people to go out and do this survey. So much differently than we had done this in the past, we really had a lot of input from the stakeholders. So now we have all this great information, but we had to figure out what were our performance measures going to be? What are we going to look at as far as our plan and how are we going to determine what's important for us? So we looked at things like traffic service measures, congestion measures, and traffic safety measures. And then base year is 2015. So we took a look at what are things looking at, which was then now, 2015, and then what are things going to look at in 2050? So we know what we're going to expect in the future and what we need to do now. So what do we need to do? So the key on this slide here is we're looking at existing conditions. You can see here on the first bullet point, 45% of our lane miles are classified as congested. For just our county roads, again, 45% of lane miles are considered congested. And then we can see using that map, the darker colors are where there's more congestion, your reds and your dark browns, places that we know we have congestion. So using maps from our consultant was a really helpful way for us to get all this data together and sort of look at it visually and see, does this make sense?
I'll forward it.
Thanks. Okay, so what data did we examine when we did this? We partnered with a consulting firm, Jacobs, and they have a modeling system that they use where they took information, put it into their modeling system, and then it came out with results for us to take a look at. We examined things like population growth, employment growth, and traffic volumes to see how things are going to change going into 2050. You can see here in some of the bolded information, things that we found that what's going to happen. Oh, I'm sorry. Slide here. Can you go back one?
Yep. Sorry.
There we
about
go. That's okay. So we can, this map is easier to see because it really tells the story of all the modeling that the consultant did for us. And we reviewed these maps with them so that we could understand and make sure what the model said was going to happen really made sense. So Tom and I would have these large printouts of maps, and we sat with the consultant and talked through everything that we saw to ensure that what the model said we really believed was true, and ask questions. And there were things that they made some changes on because of our questioning. So I want to let you know that we didn't just kind of let them tell us this is what the model says. We actually put a lot of thought into what it said and did it make sense to us. So you have some different data that we found out from that initial modeling. All right, so here's what I'm going to call like the slide. What if we didn't do anything? If we had we know we can predict what will happen in 2050, but what if we didn't do any improvements? And that's what this slide will show you. All the information in bold shows you if we did nothing between now and 2050, 75% of the lane miles in all roadways in Kane County would be congested. For Kane County roads alone, still looking at 74% of lane miles. So very interesting information that we had, and again, shown in a map form so that it's easy for folks to take a look at that and understand what's going on instead of just looking at a bunch of numbers. So that's what this is about. So we have all these great ideas, what we need to do. We have these different projects we know we need to do, but we actually have to look at our financial situation and see what are we going to look like in 2050 when it comes to finance. So our finance director did some forecasting to see where we're going to have our revenues, what our expenses are going to be. And then we use this information to come up with the cost of our improvements, prioritizing projects, and then always going back to our financial forecasting. So just a little bit of a summary there for you, seeing how what we expect to be our expenditures in the next 30 years and what our capital investments would be. This is kind of an overview of what we would be doing, the types of improvements that we would see, arterial widening, new growth on the tollways, even though that isn't ours, it's still part of our transportation system, looking at new bridge and road corridors, realignments, really a big full picture of different projects that we need to do. And it's also important to note that these are related to other plans that we've already had in place, like our comprehensive road improvement plan, which is called the CRIP up there, and also CMAP's 2050 plan. So we wanted to make sure that any work that has been done that looks at our transportation plan was honored as part of this process that we did. And it's also important to note that we weren't just looking at folks that were driving their vehicles on our roadways, that we really wanted this to be sort of a multimodal review of our transportation system. It does look at transit and paratransit, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, in addition to our typical work that people think of at KDOT. So we do have links to things like our transit plan, our bike and pedestrian annual plan. We are talking about complete streets policies, important things to us as an entire region to help manage traffic. And so I wanted to just highlight this slide to let you know that we did look at those things too as part of this plan. This is my final slide. Just leave it with you. So this is predicting what the future will look like if we make these improvements. So you can see we'll have 360 new lane miles in there. With those projects in place, our vehicle hours of travel, in other words, how many hours you travel in the system, decreases 14%. And then the vehicle hours of delay decreases by 27%. So we know that the improvements that we're looking to make will make a difference if we put them in. And again, there's a map that shows some of the projects highlighted there. Once we have the full plan posted, you'll be able to go in and see every project listed that we have on the map, and then all the details behind the information we have here. So our timeline for this right now, the consultant is finishing up updates to that full plan that we have put together. They're finished already with the executive summary and then our slide deck that we're going to post. We hope to have maybe in about 2 weeks, we can start posting that information and asking for public comment. We'll have different methods of outreach and ask people to take a look at the slide deck for information. They can look at the full plan and then give us their comments on what they see there, and we'll take those into account. So hopefully in 2 weeks that will be up there. And once we go through all those comments, when they come back, then we'll come back to you for approval and adoption of our full plan. What I have for you today.
Any questions for Jackie? I'll go to Mr. Hanson first.
Good morning and thank you. Thank you for the update and the report. I can't imagine trying to plan something 30 years out, especially in these times. And that's kind of my question. How does this current pandemic era or post-pandemic life that may have changed for a lot of people impact what we may do? And I ask that because right now I'm an engineer for the BNSF and our metro line there. 70,000 people a day system now hauls about 5,000 people a day. And I'm sure the percentage drop off is similar here. We hear about people that are working at home, and the traditional commute may change, whether it be via public transportation or on their own vehicles. So how do you, that doesn't change necessarily what you're going to do, but how does that impact what you're planning on doing with really uncertain times?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. One thing that we were able to do, and we did do, and it delayed us a little bit further, is we decided to go back and change some of our financial forecasting based on some of the numbers that have come through since the pandemic started. So we were able to adjust some of those numbers, and we're going to put a footnote, if you will, in there saying that these numbers are based on what we knew at this point in time in August 2020. That to be true. Now, when it comes to our projects and what we're going to do, I think we're just going to have to take a wait and see attitude. We do always consider this plan, and in particular, our 5-year plan, our TIP. That's always a fluid document that's changing, and we'll probably have to look at it because you're absolutely right. People may take transit less, they may drive more, but they're also maybe working from home more. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see, and we can make adjustments along the way to that. Tom, if you want to add.
I was just going to add a little bit. We are required to update every 5 years. Our TIP is required to be updated every year. But the long-range planning, we are required to at least consider an update 5 years from now. It is. There are different things that we'll need to be considering and looking at. Transit, as you mentioned, Metro is way down, and it continues to be down. PACE and CTA is picking up a little bit, but they're still only at like about 45–50% capacity. Traffic-wise, we've seen the single occupancy vehicles get back up to almost pre-COVID, but we've also seen a increase of more than 10% in trucks on our roads because everybody's ordering through Amazon, and so trucks have actually increased by 10% over pre-COVID. And so there's different dynamics going on, and we'll have to watch some of those numbers and see how to respond to them in the future.
Okay, Ms. Wodnicki?
Thank you, Drew. Would you or anybody else on transportation have an update on what the state's plans are for Route 47 through Kane County? I know several years back, they talked about widening Route 47, and then I think we went through the 2008 market change, and I have not heard much since then. So any updates?
Yeah, there hasn't been much of a change. There's still funding that has been earmarked for south of Sugar Grove down to Yorkville to widen to the 4 lanes. Beyond that, there's really no other projects in IDOT's capital program or even in the new capital program for any further widening at this point in time. It doesn't mean that there can't be further consideration if some of the funds that were anticipated come to fruition, but right now there's no widening consideration for north of Sugar Grove.
Interesting. Thank you.
I think in the Capitol bill, McHenry had a real big ask for Route 47, but I don't know what happened to that. But they did just repave it through Kane. So it's all brand new.
Yeah, I saw the
Other questions
repaving.
for Jackie? Mr. Caius?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm trying to formulate a little bit. So this is a great snapshot of what's happened now. And how has the previous how have previous snapshots that we've captured up to this point carried out to where we are now? Are we way off? I see we're like 47% backed up on all the roads. How about, we did this, what, 10 years ago or 5 years ago? Did what we project 5 years ago or 10 years ago foresee that we would be backed up this badly at this point? What's our trend on that? Is there, or is this brand new science and we're just going ahead with the?
I'll let Jackie handle that.
Yeah, excellent
make sense?
question, because we decided to take a look at that with Carl's direction. He asked us, let's take a look at our 2020 and 2030 plan and see, did we make good predictions and everything? So we are just about done with that analysis. We are going to bring it to you and show you what it looked like, what we thought would happen when we did our 2020 plan, our 2030. So yeah, thank you for reminding me that we can bring that to you possibly next month and give you
That'd be
a
great.
snapshot.
Be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
In 2 sentences, if you look like our 2020 plan, we're probably underestimating at that point in time. The 2040 to 2050, we probably have really pushed out the 2040 number, the CMAP number at that time, out to 2050. There is a slower growth rate that's anticipated now out to 2050.
Oh, so it has changed.
It has changed, but Jackie, at Carl's direction, is putting together a more detailed information.
That's a 2 thumbs up.
Is it the congestion rate? Yeah, I don't know what a typical one is, but I would have, if you asked me to guess, I would have said 20 to 30, 25 to 30, say. But, so it's surprising. So other questions? What are we going to do when the Green New Deal is fully implemented and there's no fossil fuels and our motor fuel tax is 0?
That's why we're looking at multimodal. So keeping that in
I
mind.
had to get a dig in.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other questions? Well, thanks, Jackie. It looks great. I love the layout. It's clear and concise, and I think it looks wonderful.
Yeah, the consultant helped us with that, and it was really beneficial to have it. So our plan will look very similar to that. And
We will have
Thank
you
you.
back in the future. So we're going to go back to Tom for traffic operations and permitting.
You have the report. I have nothing further to add to it.
If you have any questions, see Tom. Then we have an ordinance establishing the speed limit on Long Meadow Parkway. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Hanson, second by Mr. Caius. Tom?
All right. This ordinance is to look at a newer segment of Long Meadow Parkway. It's essentially from the 500 feet east of Whitechapel to the connector road to Illinois 31. And this would be for 45 miles per hour. We're able to do this without a speed study because of the curbed design of Long Meadow. So we're able to bring it down to 45 miles per hour automatically. Everything to the west as you go into the residential area, the area over here, the county board last year or about a year ago posted that at 35 miles per hour. So that continues to be at that. This segment here, at least at this point in time, the lowest we can get it is for 45. And again, that's because of the curb. In the future, there is land development proposals for residential in this area. There may be a time in the future that we could look at a lower speed limit, but that would have to be done via a speed study in the future.
That's a downhill pitch there also from west
Yes.
to east, yeah.
Yep. So staff is recommending approval of the 45 miles per hour.
Questions or comments, Mr. Kais?
Thank you. I'm just concerned, and I think you touched on it, this won't have an effect on the speed from Whitechapel or that area. It's still going to remain at 35. And it doesn't set up a situation where that would make it more likely to raise it to the west. By raising this to 45, doesn't affect it now, and it doesn't precursor anything going to the west.
No, everything we do would, in the future would be based upon a speed study. Again, the curb and gutter allows us to actually go from 55 down to 45. So this I can't say it will help the situation currently. What we did was we moved the signage further to the east in order to apprise the motorists of the 35 miles per hour, and we're hoping that that helps. We also moved the speed trailer to the east.
Thank you. That was a request by residents in that area, and I appreciate your sensitivity to that.
Other questions or comments?
Just a comment, I see this as locking in that so that it doesn't become a problem.
I would hope so. I hate to ever make a promise on
Yeah,
anything.
me neither. I wouldn't promise that I would never vote on anything.
I've
wrong
only
now either.
seen the speed limit increase a couple times in my 30-some years.
Yeah.
It's usually reduced.
Thank you for being sensitive to that.
Anything else? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Hanson,
Yes.
Bull,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon? Yes. Caius,
This time only, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Raz.
Yes. Motion passes, and then we'll move to project implementation and turn it over to Steve.
The IMP report's in your packet, and not proposing to highlight anything other than may be our second busiest construction season ever, but I'll go on to photos unless anyone has any questions.
Like no questions.
So our photos, C1, the new bridge showing staining of the wall and some of the mass grading that's going on. We still have an active webcam there. You can sort of see the same angle on the top left there, though there's not a lot of activity going on there now. The bike path is open that goes underneath the bridge opening in this location right here now, so that can be seen on the webcam. So. On section C2, a lot of mass grading and storm sewer work. That's our last main line segment from Sandbloom Williams to Illinois 25. Has a July 21 completion date. Kirk Fabian paving continues, and that has a late fall completion date also. Our Stage 2 federally funded safety project on Randall, Fabian, and Orchard continues with a lot of signal work and ADA work around the intersections. Our Burlington Road Culvert project continues. That'll be done this year. Burlington at Bolcom, our latest roundabout, our second roundabout construction was finished several weeks ahead of time. Includes bike ped elements crossing the path. You get a chance to run out there and drive your Harley through that. You can enjoy that. But that, we're really proud of that project. It was built within the existing right-of-way. So we were able, no federal funds were able to fast track that project, get it through design, through construction, and rather quickly. We'll be most likely applying for awards on that project, so fingers crossed. Peckett Bridger intersection reconstruction project continues with completion date later this year. And our incremental improvements for multi-use path improvements, this year we're doing a Kirk Road element there. It shows a lot of the work that's going on. And that's all of the photos.
Yeah, I wish every job could be like Burlington and Balcom. It was amazing. I mean, I think I mentioned I had a comment from one person that said I didn't go through there in a month or so, and all of a sudden there was a roundabout and it was done. And of course, the grass is just planted just in time for the perfect growing season and the rain.
Yeah.
So,
Was
yeah.
that TR that sent
No,
that?
that was, although we should name it after TR, I think.
Whole program.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the photos and the report? Mr. Martin?
This is not directly on the report, but I just have a general question that I think probably relates to maintenance. I noticed the other day when I was driving from the Trader Joe's parking lot at Fabian Parkway, heading north, like behind the Home Depot, that there were new traffic signals being put in there that looked like they were replacing old traffic signals that look fine. What is the pattern of replacement? Or I assumed it was a maintenance item.
That is actually part of the safety project that Steve mentioned.
Right, the signal heads are being moved, and I assume that's happening at this location too. Moved to the center of the lane. In the past, they've been on the lane line. And safety studies show that moving to the center of the lane, each person in their lane has their own signal head. We're also putting new back plates, the reflective yellow back plates on the signal heads.
Noticed that, yeah.
And then the ADA elements, PED countdown equipment added, and the associated crosswalk striping and such. So those are the elements of the new signals.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to our resolution. This is related to the Union Pacific Railroad and the new Kirk Road Bridge. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Steve.
So we've been in phase one engineering for Kirk over UP Bridge Replacement Project, federally funded, 80% federally funded project for quite some time. And the report is at IDOT waiting for design approval, which is the completion of phase one engineering. And now's a good time to submit the plans to Union Pacific Railroad. We're going to need some right-of-way from them, and our structures going over their railroad tracks. So they need to review the plans. The estimated cost of that is $100,000. Staff is recommending a contingency be added for a total appropriation request of $120,000 to pay for their review of the plans.
Similar to what we did last month for Bunker Road at
Correct.
Fox. Questions or comments? If not, we'll do roll call.
Hanson? Yes. Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Fries?
Yes. Okay, and then the next item is I need a motion and a second to put all our reports from today on file. Moved by Mr. Caius, second by Mr. Martin. Roll call.
Hanson? Iqbal?
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Fries?
Yes. Okay, and then next item is we do have need for executive session. So I will ask for a motion and a second to go into executive session. Mr. Martin, Mr. Caius again. Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we're going into executive session to discuss land acquisition. Sorry. So we have a motion, a second, and roll call. So we're moving out of executive session. We already did public comment earlier. Oh, Waiting for the catch up. Okay, we're out of executive session. We already took care of public comment on non-agenda items, so unless the committee members have something, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kayas,
Mr.
second.
Chairman,
Just go ahead, Dr. Iqbal.
yeah, this is Mo Iqbal. We were left out of this executive session. We were never connected to it. At least I wasn't.
Well, the system was showing you as being in there. Were you just not hearing anything?
No.
Yeah, there was no sound in the breakout room. This is Myrna.
This is Cliff, and I agree. The sound wasn't in the breakout room. You had to come back to the main meeting.
Okay. So do you want to go back into executive session?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the answer why it was.
Yeah, the members on the teleconference, we do have the recorded session available to you. Do you have any preference? I mean, at this point, I don't know that I can go back and exec. And you're welcome to call me to get a briefing on what was discussed. Would that satisfy everybody?
They're all jumping on that, right?
Okay, hearing none, any of you that were not able to hear, please give myself a call and I will brief you. It was a very short, simple matter. I'll brief you on what was discussed in exec. So I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call.
We don't need to roll call that.
Okay, we can do.
Doing roll call on the
Okay.
We don't care about that.
Okay, so all in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.